Thank you very much. Now you may sit down. And you are in a completely new mood. Huh? So I'm going to talk about learning, innovation, and competence building systems. I think my colleague Brandenburg, he told you that he made an invention, and he told you exactly how he made it. And he didn't tell you that he also made money from it. I also made an innovation, and together with a few other people, he had a senior professor, I had the senior professor, Christopher Freeman, but we didn't make too much money on it. It was more for the fun. But in principle, in social science, sometimes when you develop a new concept, it's not completely different from developing a new product. But we don't protect this as property. We actually try to diffuse it as much as possible, because our honor or our positive estimation, etc., is proportional to how much people take on our ideas. So it's a slightly different game, but there are many parallels. This concept was first used by Christopher Freeman. He's a brilliant economist, and he founded actually European innovation research, I would say. He did so in the beginning of the 60s, where he established a science policy research unit. And he used this concept the very first time, 1983, in a kind of informal paper for OECD. And it was never published because it was, at that time, controversial. We got the official explanation that they had a problem with the printing capacity at OECD for the period, so they couldn't print this one. But it's a very important paper, and it was now, I made sure it was published a couple of years ago with a new introduction. In this paper, Freeman refers to Friedrich List, a German guy who played a very important role, economist, in the unification of Germany. He had a concept which he referred to as the national system of production. And he was actually quite focused on knowledge and innovation. He said that the most important form of capital is not financial capital or physical capital, it's actually mental capital. It's what people have in the head which determine the success of a national system of production. So he was early on. But if you start digging, you find good ideas even further back. There's somebody pointing to an Italian medieval economist, Antonio Serra, from 1613, and somebody even point to Babbage. I assume many of you know Babbage, because Babbage is normally seen as the grandfather of the computer. He developed actually a concept which was had all the ingredients. It didn't have electricity and semiconductors, but the principles of a gigantic counting machine he had developed already. The first books on this issue, we developed this concept in interaction between myself and Christopher Freeman in the first half of the 80s. And in 87, 88, Christopher Freeman, Richard Nelson, and myself, we published several books and articles on the national innovation system. And we were all involved in different ways with OECD. And OECD is a very important organization in this field of science technology. It has been a kind of prime mover of ideas into the public policy world. And there was something called the TEP project. where the idea of innovation as an interactive process and innovation system were, so to say, legalized. When the OECD writes about something, national governments can start taking it seriously. The first leading politician who used this concept was actually my co-ambassador, who has been mentioned already several times, Esko Aho. He was at that time prime minister in Finland, and Finland was in a very serious economic crisis. And he said, our major mission now is to strengthen the Finnish national innovation system. One recent application is in Finland's 15-year plan for science and technology. This plan was also designed under the leadership of a prime minister. And it refers to the national innovation system as a methodological framework for the whole plan. They take this concept very seriously in China. I worked there for 3 years. They translate all books we have written on innovation system, and they use it very widely. If you're interested, you can look at a global network on scholars working on innovation systems, innovation and competence building system, and you will find the reference www.globalix.org, and you can also find references to corresponding regional networks in Asia and in China. And these are things I have started, so in a sense you can say that I was not basically only involved in the invention, I was also involved in the innovation and the diffusion of this concept. The basic idea with the national innovation system was to see it not mainly or only related to science and technology. It was to see innovation as rooted in the production system. And this was obviously the case for List, but it was also the case for Chris Freeman, who wrote about the Japanese innovation system, and also about our work in Aalborg, where we worked on the Danish innovation system. The basic aim was to understand catching up or international competitiveness. It was not to understand only the kind of technical relationship between science and technology, university and industry. It was actually to try to understand better some macroeconomic issues related to economic growth and catching up. And this means that it's a different concept from triple helix. You probably all heard about triple helix, where you refer to government, university, and industry and their interaction. I would say triple helix only captures a very small part of the innovation system and not necessarily the most important one. Why do we need a broad definition of innovation systems and innovation policy? In order to explain how new ideas are brought to the market and transformed into economic performance, it is necessary to take into account both science-based learning and experience-based learning. It's not, very important things, which have been mentioned in the discussion here: human resources and organization within and across firms are very important, and the role of users, which was mentioned before, is extremely, is absolutely fundamental. And I would say here that all innovations, actually you need to think about the end user. The end user can be a consumer, it can be a worker using a new machine, but you should think about it all times. And the same is true for the role of employees. Every time you innovate something, it will have some implication for the people who are going to bring this innovation into the production, into the market. Therefore, I'm not very happy with the idea that you make a distinction between what you call user-driven and employee-driven innovation. I think you need a systemic understanding where you look